Hi there folks, back again for another video for this week. As you can tell, this one's going to be another sort of Middle-earth themed one if you've read the title and or looked at the thumbnail and or read the screen at this particular moment. But yes, we're going to be diving into something a little bit different this time though. So a lot of people will know that the Rings of Power is out there in the world at the moment. I'm enjoying it quite a lot at the moment. Very cool. That obviously deals with the Second Age, but there's lots of stuff in there that focuses on the First Age. And the thing that came to my mind is that I've talked in the past, and there'll be a video which you can check out, where I was talking about different ways to play Middle-earth on the tabletop without using the system from Games Workshop. Well, what occurred to me is that the system from Games Workshop for the strategy battle game is pretty great, if not perfect, for playing out everything you want to do in the Third Age. But if you were going to start picking up a lot of different models and playing around with different miniatures from different companies and all that kind of thing, what about if you went back in time when it came to Middle-earth and Arda, and instead look to the First Age as an opportunity to play out different games with different mechanics, with different models, and with different sets of rules. Well, I was tinkering around on the internet and I found a couple of articles that probably made me thought, ooh, this is kind of cool. So these have come from Graham Greene and they were in the Miniature Wargames magazine. And basically what they did is they have inspired me to do some interesting things with the good old Oathmark again. Now obviously that's a system and a set of models that we've talked about in previous videos where we thought they were really great for using them in Middle-earth because they're very Tolkien-esque, very Tolkien themed. Even the creator of Oathmark, McCullough, has been using his hobby time to craft all sorts of different armies for Middle-earth and characters for Middle-earth, so clearly inspired by that. And what basically Graham goes through in this article is how, in actual fact, everything that you see in Oathmark is pretty perfect for you to do the First Age using the Oathmark rules. So they've broken down a lot of stuff to do with the different armies that you'd need for both good and evil in this article, and I'll have all this linked down below so you can go and check it out. But in essence, they've basically gone through and talked about the Noldor, the Sindar, the Sylvans, all the different dwarven factions, the humans that are involved with each of these, how they all work together. One of the interesting things for me is that they've done a really nice breakdown of kind of how you'd build up the map and everything for playing out your games of Middle-earth on the tabletop in that sort of First Age period. They've done the Dwarves of Nogrod, they've done Feanorian Spearmen and all sorts of different things, which I think is really cool. They've come up with interesting rules for building your armies in different ways. The reason that this struck out to me is because a lot of work had been done, as you can see, and you can see how the everything is broken down with Osiriad, the dwarves, Nogrod of Belagost, the different commanders that you can choose from. You know, Feanor and his the seven brothers, the sons of Feanor as well, and how it all comes together with a really interesting. And you can click on these, which is always nice. So you can see big pictures of everything that's been done and how they've been converted and all that kind of stuff. But in essence, a lot of the range itself actually just comes from North Star and the Oathmark plastic kits, to be honest. Not much has really been changed. Obviously, you've got some interesting characters here, as you can see. I wonder who that is. Turin sorry, Thingol. There we go. As well, sort of battling and kicking ass and taking names. You've got Beleg Strongbow as well, doing awesome stuff. Your dwarves with their full face helms, which I think is really cool. We'll come to that in a second as well. The Men of Dorlomin. So yeah, some really awesome stuff that has come together in this article, kind of looking at building those armies, which I think is cool. Very nice. We also had a second article, which was also from Graham Greene, which was looking at the armies of Morgoth, and the evil folk that you'll be facing off against. And so there's some really interesting stuff here talking about how to create the likes of Morgoth and building Morgoth's orcs and the armies of wolves and wargs and all that kind of stuff that has been put into the mix. How to use Sauron on the tabletop and all that kind of stuff. How to bring Glaurung, the mighty dragon, to the tabletop. And as you can see, I think once again, this is another very good article that kind of breaks down a lot of the essence of what you'd want to try and do with a project like this, and why it's a fantastic option for kind of doing the first stage on the tabletop, really. You know, using some Fenrisian walls there from Games Workshop alongside your classic goblins and stuff. I don't want to do that. I just wanted to close that. Never mind. I'll come back to that in a second. But yes, right. So, yeah, 2 awesome articles there which deal with looking at how to build the armies for this particular game. But the thing that I really wanted to talk about as well in this video is, obviously, when Graham Greene put this article together, he talked about how to mould Oathmark around the idea of building the first age on the tabletop. But I also wanted to talk about Oathmark in general as well. So we're going to open up the Oathmark rulebook here. So Oathmark is a very good game by Joseph McCullough. It focuses on very much being narrative and campaign driven, a little bit like all of his other games, rather than it being just a straight up brawl between 2 armies. Now, there's no reason that you can't do it that way. You can just do your normal points battles, but the main focus of this is the campaign, which we'll get to later. When it comes to kind of like the basics of playing the game and all that kind of stuff, the game is actually driven by the use of D10s, and it's a proper rank and flank style affair. So you'll be building up ranks of units on the tabletop. You can see some of them there, building up into sort of like a proper human army and all that kind of thing. And then everything is done using D10s. So you'll be rolling your D10s in order to hit particular target values and then applying those to units and taking damage and all that kind of thing. Miniatures are removed by a base by base basis. That's a lot of basing. So it kind of feels a little bit like Warhammer Fantasy in that regard, which is kind of cool. It's also got a lot of stuff that's been built into there that is much more command focused as well. So you have activations that you have to dive into. So you can give commands to units and you have to see whether or not they'll follow them through effectively, which I think is kind of cool. And yeah, it's definitely a game which kind of simplified a lot of stuff when it came to rank and flank games. Obviously, you've got the intricacies of how to do like flanking and attacking and all that kind of stuff. But in general, it's very simple, and everything kind of comes down to this sort of target number that you get, because you generate a number of dice based on the fight value of the unit times how many people are in the front rank, and then you get bonuses in terms, or minuses, I guess, depending on what state the units are in as they're attacking, and everything's simultaneous between the two as well, which I think is really nice. So it does a really nice. It's got a really nice way of kind of like delivering sort of like quick and easy rank and flank games on the tabletop, which I think is cool. And yeah, and the same applies to shooting and all that kind of stuff. But the meat of what I wanted to get to actually comes in sort of building an army and sort of getting stuck into the campaign side of the game. So one of the interesting things about the game is that you actually dive into what's called like kingdom building. So when you create a kingdom, I wonder if there's a picture of the is there one at the back of the book? I can't remember. Never mind. When you create a kingdom, you have a kingdom sheet effectively, so it'll have sections and regions to it. And one of the interesting things about the game is that you build this up and you choose regions, and the regions that you choose give you access to different character types and troops and all that kind of thing. What's really nice about this when it comes to building it into the Silmarillion and the First Age is that you're not restricted to just playing elves, humans, or dwarves. And during the first age of Middle Earth, in Beleriand, when they were fighting against Morgoth and all this kind of stuff, the elves, yes, they did a lot of fighting by themselves, but they also joined forces with humans and dwarves on occasion, in order to fight against the forces of Morgoth. And so you could build up your elven kingdom, but then you could also have human territories in the list that would would give you access to certain elements of different society and allow you to bring in more characters. So, for example, you could have an elven capital, as you can see there, and you can only have certain things because you've chosen an elven capital, but then you could dive into creating a human list and take some iron mines and have access to human champions and human warriors and line breakers and that kind of stuff. And this obviously costs a little bit of difference and all that kind of stuff as you're building your armies and that kind of thing. But you can theme things really nicely, or you can use that list from Graham Greene to kind of tie together an interesting kingdom on the tabletop. Now, the other thing that's really nice about this is that because you're building up things for a campaign, and you're sort of striking at different territories and all that kind of stuff, one of the nice things about this is that it kind of mirrors the shifting geography, I guess would be the right word, of the landscape of Beleriand during that First Age period, because everything was very much in flux. People were losing kingdoms and all that kind of stuff. And I think this Oathmark echoes that feeling very, very nicely on the tabletop. Because, say you're playing as the evil forces, perhaps, under the command of Morgoth, striking out against the elves and all that kind of stuff, you could have your base there, and you could then be expanding out and taking over different ranges and destroying certain elements. And because of the kingdom system that's built into Oathmark, it feels very much like you're playing a First Age game. You're not having to play just a standard map-based campaign using other rules from other fantasy war games and then feeling that you're having to try and retrofit things. I think this deals with everything very, very nicely and allows you to play out that storyline in a very evocative way. And I'm always interested in war games and role-playing games and everything that ties mechanics into themes and narrative. And I really think that while Oathmark is great as a sort of standard basic fantasy game, I think it amazingly fits well with that kind of Silmarillion First Age Battles in Beleriand. Oh, there you go. There's the title for your games. Battles in Beleriand style affairs on the tabletop. Especially because of the fact that you've got this really nice section of armies and that kind of stuff that can easily be converted to use in your games and all that kind of things. So yeah, as I say, I think diving into a campaign of Oathmark on the tabletop and using that kingdom mechanic and the way that campaigns play out in order to really hammer home that kind of First Stage feel to things, I think is really cool. And you almost have that crescendo moment as well, because you can kind of do like a what if. So one of the big things about it is that you muster your armies and you play out different battles on the tabletop, using your forces and all that kind of thing. But you, as you sort of take different regions and that kind of thing and break down the defenses, you will eventually end up with this fight for the capital, and that kind of brings a finality to things, and it means you can dive into playing out those proper big moments in the First Stage and all that kind of stuff. Maybe you want to play out, the burning of the cities and all that kind of things in the background and stuff, just to kind of sort of nail home that the fear that you get from sort of Morgoth stomping all over everything and all that kind of thing. So yeah, very cool stuff indeed. I'm definitely one of those people that I think if you're interested in doing something fantasy wargaming in Middle Earth, but you want to do it a little bit differently, I think that this would be a great way to go. I want to see Gondolin on the tabletop and all that kind of stuff, and I want to see it done in a really interesting way as you're sort of diving through campaign-based play and all that kind of stuff. And because you're playing this with... one of the things about the First Age, I think, is that it embraces the idea of things being larger in scale and having large armies, because everything was at the Elves were at their prime during this period, as was Morgoth and his armies of evil, of orcs and goblins and all that kind of thing, and Balrog and dragons and that kind of stuff. And so having a mass battle game feels more appropriate to the setting. And then you've also got the focus on you know, those kind of epic moments on the tabletop and all that kind of thing, I think is really nice. And because the system itself is very, well, not basic, but it's easy to learn and easy to play, you know, it's broken down very quickly there within within 10-15 pages, and the advanced rules are for like monsters and special items and magic and that kind of thing. I think you can really have fun with the game, playing out those big battles, doing it quickly and making it part of a big campaign thing so you can play over weekends and all that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, I would definitely make sure to go and check out Oathmark if you get the chance. There's a couple of expansions as well that have come out, but we're just going to return to the galleries for a moment, because one of the things that I really liked about this is that a lot of people have already been doing this kind of stuff. So over on the Dwarf Crypt, you have people who've been building very awesome kind of armies of Doriath and the Elves and all that kind of stuff. And it was when I saw this and how these have come together that I was like totally on board with what you could do with Oathmark and the Oathmark range when it came to the Silmarillion and the First Age and Beleriand and all that kind of stuff. Because I was like, you know what, that's the really interesting about the Oathmark range, is that it's Middle Earth and it's Tolkien, but they've really nailed something First Age rather than it being just something sort of Tolkien-esque in its entirety. And I think, honestly, the miniatures just look perfect for it, because they have that kind of hoity-toity, snooty look to them. So as you can see, lots of these mighty elven swordsmen that have come together and all that kind of stuff over on here. I'll have a link down below so you can go and check it out. But the other thing I wanted to bring out is just sort of like the look of the different armies and things that exist, so you can get a handle on it all. So, you know, orcs and goblins looking great as orcs and goblins in the game. Your elves again looking fantastic for use on the tabletop. I think they look brilliant, especially the newer stuff. Here's some of the characters that came out for the light infantry elves. I mean, these characters just scream First Age elves to me. You know, that could even be Turin, perhaps, sort of done up as one of the bandits during his time when he was sort of ranging around rather than fighting for anyone in particular. I think that could even be a Feanor if you really wanted to go down that route and go like properly awesome. Even the dwarves are looking great. I think the dwarves make very, very good sort of petty dwarves. So if you're going down the route of having the dwarves of Nim or something, I think that would be really nice to see that come together. And I think you can make some really fun armies out of them, and we'll get to a little bit more detail on those in a second as well. You've even got some really nice stuff for the Servants of Evil. So obviously the new orcs came out recently, and I think they're just perfect. I think they've got a really nice sort of like snarling evil quality to them, which is exactly what you want when you're trying to put together sort of Morgoth and Sauron's orcs, and I think they've nailed that. And if you're looking for kind of sort of fallen humans and the like, I think the North Star range for Rangers of Shadow Deep is perfect, because I think these would be really awesome as kind of Easterlings and servants of Sauron and that kind of stuff and Morgoth that are working in the shadows to try and take down the realms of men and elves. But yes, even their dragon, I think this is a particularly great sort of opportunity to make a Glaurung. While I also thought about this would be really good for kind of like a Smaug, obviously, I think this would be fantastic as sort of like a Glaurung style dragon on the tabletop, and you could have a proper Turin versus Glaurung face off on the tabletop, which I think would be quite nice. You've even got undead. You don't really hear a lot about undead in the First Age, really, I guess. But you know, you've got some really nice options there, and they've got that sort of classic ancient feel to them, which makes them fit really nicely into the setting as well. And yeah, so I thought it'd be worth going through the web store as well. So they've got a really nice wealth of different things for you to dive into and pick up. A lot of it's plastic and metal as well. So you've got your orcs there, your dwarven heroes, and the reason that I wanted to bring this one up is that the dwarves for Oathmark, really nail the aesthetic of the dwarves of specifically the First Age, and kind of what you'd seen in Rings of Power for the Second Age, where they have the full face plates. So obviously Turin's dragon helm is an old dwarven helm with the face plate and the dragon ridge over the top, sort of like a Sutton Hoo style helmet from history. While all the heavily armored dwarves in the Oathmark range have those face plates, so you could even take those and use them to make different types of heroes if you really wanted to, which I think was quite nice. So yeah, some more of the goblins there as well. Very cool, very nice. Here's some of those elven heroes I was talking about. Now, I mean, like, these are they just scream First Age elves heading out into the wilderness to fight off orcs and all that kind of stuff. I cannot get the idea of how awesome Turin and Beleg Strongbow are as characters, and how I definitely want to see them on film. But there we go. That's a moment for another day. Now the humans are an interesting one. I really think the humans work very well. The only thing that I would do is I would change the shields. I wouldn't use the square shields because I think they look too medieval, I guess. I would go for round shields or sort of the elven style of shield, as we saw there, that kind of like that look to it, because I think that fits more into the Silmarillion style look of things, and you can see it actually on some of the humans that Graham Greene worked on. If I can find some humans, here we go. Humans. Yeah, so here we go. So there's some of the men of Doriath, and yeah, gone with sort of kite shields rather than the classic round ones, because I think that works better, in my opinion, for what you want to do. Because I think with the First Age and Balerians, you've got that slightly more of a sort of Dark Age feeling to things, I guess. And I think that works really nicely for the humans. There you go, there's that winged dragon. I mean, only £30 for a dragon, which is pretty damn good. It's a big resin piece as well. But perfect Glaurung if you wanted to be doing that kind of stuff with Morgoth's armies. And here's some of these kind of followers of Sauron and Morgoth that I was thinking about. Just add some of these into your armies of men, and you can do some kind of ravaging hordes that have decided to ally themselves with Morgoth and Sauron and have them fighting it out on the tabletop. All you got to do is add some of these in and then paint your human miniatures in a slightly different way, and I think you've got evil humans very nicely. You've even got things like the Shadow Knight as well, which I think is just a phenomenal model anyway. I don't know how I'd fit it into the game, but I think it looks great. If you want to do a particularly interesting scenario on the tabletop, you also have access to some werewolves from the Dracula in America range. Maybe you want to see Galadriel's poor brother get savaged by werewolves. Werewolves are also a massive thing when it comes to Sauron and Morgoth and stuff. Although Oathmark obviously probably saw werewolves as well, I guess. But yeah, some really nice werewolves there that I think would be perfect for hunting people down on an island somewhere, perhaps. That's an awkward scenario to play out, but a sad one at least anyway. And you've also got things like these tortured souls and stuff that were available from the horror range as well, that I think just really fantastic stuff. And if you want to go even more down that route of kind of shadowy figures, there's these shadows from Otherworld miniatures as well that I think would be great for sort of spirits and trying to represent Sauron, as his kind of as Morgoth's second in command, as this kind of shadowy spirit rather than the fair character that we get to see in other stuff. So yeah, an interesting one, I think. I don't know why this has gone like it has, but there we go. Press reader for you. We'll go back to this page. An interesting article from Graham Greene that I think really spurred on something interesting for me and hopefully for you folks as well. Make sure to obviously go and check out the article. Let me know what you think. Look, there are some of those dwarven helms, the full faceplates. It looks amazingly First Age. Anyway, let me know what you think. And if you've done something similar to this, have you looked at using kind of classic ranges and Foundry and Gripping Beast and Footsore to bring armies together that could be used on the tabletop for the First Age and things? Do you agree that going down the route of doing something larger in scale is the right way to approach things? Yeah, let me know. But yeah, so that's my video for today. A little bit of an interesting one that was kind of Middle-earth themed, but in a different route. As I say, really liking the Rings of Power at the moment, and it's spurring me on to do some Second Age and First Age stuff. I'm really tempted by the idea of doing a proper elven army, but I still want to throw Beleg and Turin into the mix as well, because they're just amazing. So we'll see how it all comes together. But yes, I'm sure that I have forgotten a few things about the First Age, but hey, reading Silmarillion is a task. There we go. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think that Oathmark is a good game? I think it is. I did a little bit of a review there, I guess. Do you think the kingdom system and all of those mechanics are perfect for playing out these larger battles of Middle-earth during the First Age, moving into the Second? And yeah, what kind of armies would you build? Would you build a purely elven force, aligning yourselves with Feanor or one of the other elven kingdoms? Would you go down the route of building a human army that is sort of allied to the elves? Would you do just the dwarves? Would you go down the route of Morgoth and build up a mighty force serving under the Dark Lord? How would you approach it? I'd love to know in the comments down below. Let me know your thoughts. As always, thank you very, very much for everyone who has subscribed, likes the videos, comments them and all that kind of stuff. I try to get back to everyone if I can and just sort of share my thoughts with you, because you're all a really awesome community already. Thank you very much for that. If you do like what I do, make sure to check out all the other videos. There'll be some on screen as well as the video comes to a close. And also, there's that Ko-fi tip jar as well. So if you like my videos and you want to help me out, maybe get me on the road towards building some of these First Age armies, then please, donate some money. But you do not have to. The most important thing is that you like, share, and subscribe. Sharing it with your friends is really, really good, because it means that it gets out there into more people's hands. And yeah, I just want to hear more people's thoughts, because I just love talking about Middle-earth. I love talking about wargaming. I love talking about miniatures. And that's what this place is all about. Even if I have strayed somewhat from the Middle-earth SBG world for now. But yes, make sure to drop some comments down below. I shall see folks in the next video. Start thinking about the First Age and playing out Middle-earth in a different way, perhaps. I'll see you folks very, very soon. Well, next week for another video. Bye!